Hey everybody, what's up? It's Joe Tolkien Fanatic Hard Alley back here with another episode. We're going to call this one Young Guns Episode 2 because even though my guest today isn't a young gun himself, we're going to be talking about some young guns here. So I'm here with Dustin Amell Wallace, and he is power broker manager of Ghost Gaming, some other teams. But he can describe himself a lot better than I can. So let's start off there. So who are you and what do you do?
What's up, Joe? Everybody else? Joe, before we actually started this conversation, what did I say to you? I said you had a wife beater on. And you had the little chains.
Yeah.
What did I forgot? What did I say? Something about Jersey?
You said I look like I'm from Jersey, and I was like,
yeah.
that's 100% accurate. 100% accurate. Stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, you know.
Yeah, right. kind of like you kind of mentioned. I don't manage Ghost. I'm not a part of Ghost. So to kind of clear that up out of the way, I actually have nothing to do with them other than the relationship that I had with them prior to them signing with Ghost. And so that to kind of answer that question, that's where I'm at right now. So.
But you are currently managing a Premier squad, right? That is correct.
Yeah. Yes and no. It's kind of like it's like the foundation on which the Premier and the pro teams are on right now. We don't really manage per se. Kind of like when I started with BMC, I never really managed. I just kind of funded their LAN trips and just kind of advised their players. And as I've progressed with the team, I've just become more of like a mentor, an advisor, and just a money machine, I guess. Really, the best way to put it.
Yeah, so talk about that. I mean, how did you find CS, get involved in CS, and then to the point where you're funding teams? What I have no idea actually what you do outside of CS. So I mean, what are you doing that is allowing you to fund these teams?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question, Joe. So to kind of answer your question. Again, before we start, I just want to thank you again for taking the time out.
We can do that at the end. You can do the shout-outs at the end. It's all good.
Okay, cool.
But I appreciate it.
All right,
thanks.
So, absolutely. So basically, I kind of got into CS. I've been into video games since I was a kid, right? That was kind of my getaway. That's what I did for fun. I didn't really go out and party or, when I was at a younger age, I didn't go out with my friends, go play football outside. I just played games. And Counter-Strike was one of the games that I was into when I was younger. And then I got reintroduced to CS:GO, and I went to a couple LAN tournaments, local LAN tournaments here where I live at in Oklahoma, and I met Seb. So Seb, as a lot of people know who Seb is, he is the one that when I first met him, we kind of hit it off pretty well. And I kind of stepped away from CS:GO at the time. I was busy with real life obligations, and I had asked him if he ever needed anything, let me know. So I got a call from him randomly one day. And him and the team at the time, known as BMC, Bees Money Crew, needed funding to go to a Colorado LAN. And I picked up the phone. He asked me, and without hesitation, I said, "Yeah, man, I got you. Whatever you need, let's make it happen." And so that's kind of how I became part of the BMC family through that. So they kind of, hey, you need money to go to this LAN, and I told them, "Hey, I got you." So he kind of took me up on my offer, which was kind of surprising. And they were doing really well at the time. Obviously, I think they were winning back-to-back tournaments, and they were on a hot streak at the time. So I was more than happy to, because I have a passion for the game, right? In the sense that I like to see competitors, win, and I like to see good teams do good. And I really saw potential in this team. So obviously now they're pro, and I wasn't wrong. But at the same time, I was just really happy to help them out and pursue their goal.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of interrupt you for a second, so that LAN that you're talking about would have been Onslaught, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You do your research. Yeah, that was it.
So to put all this in context for all you viewers out there, this was a LAN at tail end of 2016, like November 2016, and the team had just come off winning Philadelphia 9.
Right.
And then they also went on to win Onslaught, where they beat Eclipse, which is now known today as Rise Nation. So,
that's right.
So kind of, a beautiful coming of age story of two, rising teams in the pro scene. Ghost, who have made it to pro now, and Rise Nation, who certainly would be favorites to make it to pro next season. And so to back up again, so can you talk about what you do in real life, or is that just out of the scope?
No, yeah,
of this?
no, I have no problem at all. Yeah, no, my brother owns a company, and I help him out with that, with a couple other business ventures. So that's what I do basically.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, let's talk more about BMC. So I mean, like BMC as we know it, I guess kind of was created before you came into the picture. But BMC as we know it was kind of created in ESEA Main Season 23.
Right.
It's a ESEA roster that has existed long before that, but Season 23 is when we start seeing your Wardells, your Drossel's, your VSAs, your Sebs, and B. Like, B in the team, obviously, who the team's namesake comes into the team that season. And I forget how, I believe they won Main that season. Yeah.
Yep, they did.
Yeah, so they won Main that season. And then they were promoted to Premier, obviously, Season 24. And yeah, so I mean, so you linked up with them, right, like at the time of Onslaught LAN, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right after Onslaught, or a month after Onslaught, they win Main. They go to Frag 10. They have a disappointing thing there. They win Sivo Main. And then...
Oh, we did, didn't we?
And then, really, I guess this is where everything takes off, right? Because then they qualify to ECS Development League.
Yeah.
So,
gosh, man, you're reminding me of everything right now.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about some of this. Yeah. That's where it gets a little bit fun.
But before we get to the ECS shenanigans, let's talk a little bit more about ESEA in general and Premier. I know you have some thoughts on that, and we have a section at the end for musings, so let's not get too off the beaten path, but try to talk more specifically about that season of Premier, kind of any issues that happened, like what is it like? Yeah, like what is it like for a scrappy young team of kids in Premier who have some funding, but certainly not the level of an SK Gaming or a Splice who have also been in Premier and stuff like that.
Yeah, those teams at the time were getting funded, so absolutely. The difference is night and day, right? I wasn't really salarying any of these kids. I was just helping them out, where they needed help out. So when you're comparing the two, Splice and whoever else you said, who was the other team you said?
Well, I said SK Gaming, which are obviously
right.
Head and shoulders above pretty much anyone, but they're a team that has enormous funding, enormous support, because they've already made it to the top. But for the teams coming from the bottom, it's obviously much harder to get that funding.
Again, so basically for us, none of our guys really ever got on to practice. I'm sure this is known throughout the North American community, but none of our players ever really practiced. We just got on, played our matches. It almost bit us in the ass actually in the season, because we were last place going into the playoffs, right? So we didn't really have any practice schedule. Seb had his full-time job, B was in college, and Connor had his job, and then of course Jason Neptune, as you guys know him, and Matt and Wardell, as you guys know him. They had all the time to put into the game, and obviously Matt wanted to play more, and a lot of our players. That's when it became kind of frustrating for the team, because then we were actually getting closer and closer to the pro league, and we all knew that we could do it. We all knew that we were better than every team in Premier at that time, other than of course Splice. But again, kind of going back to that point, the schedule wasn't really there. So when you have teams like SK and Splice who are funded by these major organizations and these backers that have tons of money that allows these players to practice full-time schedules. It was kind of tough. There's no doubting it, right? But we were fortunate enough to have players on an individual level that were, in my personal opinion, way above everybody else. That allowed us to make the pro league. So.
And here's a fun little tidbit. You remember that you guys got invited to the Star Ladder qualifier as well?
Yeah, I do remember.
Do you remember how that happened?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if this is a shout out to you, but shout out to you, Joe. Again, you made that happen, so we obviously appreciate that. It's still dating back to this day, man. We really appreciate that.
Making things happen, boys. Connections.
Right. It's good to know, Joe.
It is. I'm a lovely person, despite what my Twitter
from Jersey
might make you think. Were you gonna say you don't know many people from Jersey?
I don't know many people from Jersey. I don't know their accent. I like to repeat people's accents. Like, I'm from Boston, but I don't know a Jersey accent. I'm assuming it's kind of like that, but I have no idea.
You just watch.
And my accents are terrible anyway, so let's just move on.
Watch a couple episodes of Jersey Shore, you'll get it. It's not that. It's not
okay,
that
fair enough. I've never seen that show actually, so but I'll trust you on that.
Okay, so like kind of at the end, a couple timelines run together here, but kind of at the end of the Premier season is when the ECS Dev League kicks off. So you guys are playing Dev League, and I believe at some point in the course of playing Dev League, I think even like right before Dev League started, is the team were signed by Ghost. So is that something that I'm assuming you helped facilitate that process? No, not at all. Okay.
Not at all. Nope. I had nothing to do with the signing of Ghost. That was all Crondell. That was all Crondell and those guys. I mean, of course, I knew about it at the time. Me being part of the team, I wasn't actively pursuing sponsorships. I'm very busy in real life, and so my free time I literally spend just just relaxing, and so I'd never really facilitated any of that. I was just advised and told by players on the team, and I was in the know with everything. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't really actively facilitating any talks or any of those types of messages. But again, if Crondell or any of those guys had if any of those guys had any questions, they would come to me and talk to me and get my thoughts on it. So.
And so there was a situation that cropped up in the course of ECS, well, not during Dev League, but no, it wasn't Dev League, where a report came out from Slingshot, I believe, alleging that that Renegades had tried to sign the team as an academy squad.
Right. Yeah.
Is there any light that you can shed on this situation? I know it's
to an extent, yeah. I don't definitely don't mind talking about it. So at the time, obviously, as some of you might know, when you're an upcoming team, you're going to have a lot of sponsors throw themselves at you. And we were actually in talks with multiple sponsors, not just one. The most exciting, obviously, was Renegades. Obviously, given their celebrity status and who owned them, and it was kind of cool, right? But we weren't just talking to Renegades. We were in talks with Obey Alliance. I don't even want to go down the list because there were so many of them, right? Ghost obviously being one of them. But to answer the question more directly, we weren't signed with anybody at the time. We were just talks, and we came close to deals. And what I thought personally, we had signed at some point with the team, but we weren't signed. So to kind of answer that question more directly, we weren't really ever signed with anybody at the time. It was just more talks.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this was only an issue because Renegades themselves were in the development league, right? So
yeah.
No one.
And it was on the ECS side. It was kind of, even though there were rules that kind of set those aside in terms of if you could have two teams compete under the same organization. We weren't really signed with them, or we weren't signed with them. So to me, it wasn't even a big deal. The report came out and nobody was really concerned or anything like that. It was just more so, when you're talking to other teams and you tell people, word gets out, and more and more people are going to talk about it. So whatever it is what it is. But at the end of the day, we weren't signed, or they weren't signed with anybody. So but yeah, that's kind of where it all surrounded. And again, I think it blew over just because there was no hard evidence or anything like that reconciling with what had happened. So
yeah, so then after that happens, you guys actually wound up finishing third in Premier, and this was a promotion season. So third nets you a spot at the Global Challenge LAN, and secondly a spot in Pro League Relegation, right? Because the first team gets automatically promoted, and then spots 2 and 3 fight the relegated teams from Pro League.
Right.
So, you guys traveled to Global Challenge LAN and didn't have such a hot outing. Roster turmoil roster turmoil is an ever-present theme with this team, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Literally right in a second. But then, miraculously, in the midst of all this turmoil, you guys play relegation. You actually beat Rush, and Crondell, the manager / owner of BMC, actually wound up standing in on one of those maps in order to elevate you guys to Pro League that you're currently playing in. So, I mean, on the one hand, obviously that's huge for the players and anyone associated with the players. Uh-oh, lost you.
No, you're good. No, you're good. My computer went idle. There you go. You're good.
There you go. Momentary brownouts. Right. So obviously that's a huge, blessing and props and great for everyone involved. But on the other side, that led to even more turmoil. I mean, basically the entire off season was, I would verge on using the word catastrophe for you guys.
Wouldn't be far off.
Especially, I mean, what most people aren't going to know this, but really the main thing that has screwed you even now is the fact that the team license was transferred twice. It went from Ghost to Bees Money Crew, and then you guys, or the team, wound up kind of mending those fences with Ghost and winding back up with Ghost, because the players of Ghost had been all released from Ghost at some point, except for Wardell, and then wound up coming back to the organization, at least partially because of the ECS slot, I imagine, that they hold. But the way that Pro League roster rules work is if you transfer that license, then you have to maintain a core of 3 out of 5 players from the previous season. So this is the same thing that happened to Rogue. Rogue transferred their license from Enigma 6 to Rogue, so that is why they have roster restrictions.
Rogue bought them out. Rogue bought the team, I'm assuming, so... Yeah.
Yes, but so the license transfers along with that, but...
That's right, that's correct, Going back to your point, but yes, that's what happened.
So... That was a very long-winded way of me rambling, but talking just kind of about roster turmoil. So, I mean, we're not going to be able to get through all the different permutations and all the kind of things that have happened, but if you can give an overview of some of the issues, it'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah. It was, like you said, you kind of went on to like a different series of subjects here, so I'll try to hit on every point, and if I go off topic, you let me know. But yeah, kind of going back to your point, obviously the turmoil started when we were introduced, when the team was introduced to a salary offer that was more than any of these guys were used to, right? You have Matt at 18 years old, Jason, only 15, and B, he's just in college, and to not to get into the personal lives or anything like that, but this is more money than they were really making, right? Saba was the only one with a full-time job, and in order for him to, and I guess I'll touch into the subject of the team, kind of going into this, because at this point it really doesn't matter. But yes, to get to that point, Crondell had actually convinced Seb to drop down his full-time job to part-time to go pro, and it ended up turning around to bite him in the ass, because once we made pro, Crondell made the decision to cut him, and that kind of created a lot more turmoil within the team, and that's why you saw roster changes so much. And to me, I think when and I think it's great. These players are, in Premier now. You have these players. Back 2-3 seasons ago, you didn't have these organizations approaching these players. You maybe 1 or 2 that were getting salary. Now you have 6 or 7, right?
Right.
Ronin, Rise, just to name a few.
CLG Academy.
CLG Academy, right? You have all the, you have the academy teams, right? Renegades even, right? So you have all these teams getting offered all these salary options. And these kids that don't have jobs, or they're only 18, and they don't, they don't know what to do, and so, and that's awesome, right? It's cool that we got to a point to where, these kids are actually having more opportunity to play this game at a higher level. But what happened with us, I think that when Ghost, obviously you know who they are, they're backed up by a multi-million-dollar company, and when you have a manager, Cody at the time, I think his name's Cody Dragon, who manages Ghost. He comes in and he just throws all this money at us, and he's like, "Hey, I'll pay you this, I'll pay you that," right? And he takes Matt out, California. He has him shopping. He's talking him up like he's this high. You know what I mean? To me, as a manager, it's not something I would personally want to do. I would. So kind of when you have all this money being thrown at players, the dynamic starts to change, right? So what had happened is that the decision was to kick Seb initially, and not a lot of people know this, but kick Seb and Jason, which is Neptune, off the team and replace them for Mitch and Davey. By the way, who haven't had pro league experience in a while and haven't, in my opinion, proven themselves as players to warrant them to be on a pro team. So I think what happened was that there was just a hint. I wouldn't say scattered brained, I guess the word I'm looking for is there was just a panic mode from Crondell, and because he was afraid of getting relegated because he saw the results from our ECS, and we were obviously last place in ECS, and we weren't really performing right, and so I don't blame him on that aspect. But when we went to Pro League and they got offered the salary they got offered in the contracts, their pay went up significantly, and I think what happened, everybody went into panic mode, and players didn't want to play with other players, and so again, it came down to the point to where people were getting kicked. People were coming back onto the team. It was just a complete mess, like you mentioned earlier. It was just a complete mess, chaos. And of course, there's a lot more that goes into that that I obviously would take a lot more to explain. But that's kind of the general gist of it. I think that when you're introduced to a lot of money, it changes the whole dynamic of everybody. And you start to make decisions that aren't really that you normally wouldn't make otherwise. And so I think that's where we got the team where it was at, right? I think at one point we were filling 10 players for each league, one for the EPL league and
right.
and one for the ECS. So
yeah, and you mentioned Mitch and Davey. They actually did play the majority of
great
the ECS
players,
season
with the team. I'm not down talking them. Yeah, they did. Great players, by the way. I'm not down talking them. I'm just that's just kind of what it is.
So basically, it all comes down to more money, more problems. The
more
age old
adage.
adage.
That's just the honest truth, If you want the truth, that's what it is, You have a multi-million-dollar organization talking to these 18-year-old kids and 15-year-old kids, and and they're offering them X amount a month, more than they've ever seen. I think it changes the dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it is no secret that Wardell was the center of attention of the team. Him being the player that he was, and being on the rise as he was, the team did center around Wardell and a lot of his decisions, and so that's kind of where it went, and that's what that's pretty much really where it was at.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned Matt Wardell, and so let's just get right into that.
I'll have to name him by their name. I'm sorry, I'm just used to calling them by their real
No, that's
names.
okay. I do it all the time as well. So Wardell is. Let's just kick this off by saying that Wardell is quirky. Would you say that is accurate to some degree?
Wardell, to a degree, he's a person that wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very passionate about the game, and he's young. So I'm not saying every decision he's ever made was warranted. We all make mistakes, and we all make decisions that we don't initially. I'll just say it. He didn't want to play with Step for a while, and then. He wanted to play with Seb again, and it was just kind of back and forth, the whole thing with Rogue.
Yeah,
he was going to sign with Rogue, didn't sign with Rogue. He told the team one thing, he admitted to that, and that's just kind of who Matt is. Good guy, good kid. I mean, and dude, he's an awesome kid. If you ever get a chance to know him, he's a great person, great player. Obviously, we all know that, but we're all. You don't want to fault somebody for that. It's unfortunate what happened to Rogue. I think that, he should have stayed with Rogue, given the verbal commitment he did with him. But he had a change of heart, and so that's where he's at right now.
Yeah, and just to back up a little bit. So, I mean, coming into Philadelphia 11, this is before Pro League Season 6 started, Wardell definitely had interest from Pro League teams. Complexity at the time was one. Afterwards, NRG, Rogue were others, right? After the whole Cirque debacle went down. Complexity have talked about how they're trying to build a team on a budget. Wardell has...
I don't want to interrupt you, but that's another thing. Keep in mind, when Wardell was in Premier, he had options to go elsewhere with salary, but he decided to stay with BMC with no salary. So again, I want everybody to think about that when obviously I know it's in the past, and I think everybody kind of forgave him, but when he had other options, he decided to stay with the team that he stayed with, which he at the time thought it was his family, right? And so there's, again, we all make those mistakes. So I just want to kind of go back on that and just say, hey, listen, that's the type of person Matt is. He's a great guy, he's a great kid, and he'll do good things for sure.
Yeah.
But as you were saying.
Yeah, so Fragadelphia 11 happens. You guys attend with like a mix with Steel and Dallas is there. You guys were kind of trial.
Right.
Dallas is in the mix as a trial at some point for Ghost. Some falling out happens at Fragadelphia 11, and all of a sudden, basically, the team in effect gave Wardell his walking papers, right? Like the team was at one point ready to release Wardell, let him go wherever he wanted to do, and they had their plans for Pro League set, right? So, I mean, at least that is my understanding from the talking that I've done to people behind the scenes, is that, you know, you shouldn't blame Ghost, at least the players of Ghost, for what happened with Wardell and Rogue. I don't think it was like.
I mean, you only have one person to blame, and that's Matt himself.
Yeah.
You know, it's just as simple as that. There's no sugarcoating it. It is what it is. That's on Matt and what he decided to do. And again, Crondle would call me and say, "Hey, listen, you know, like again, this is at the point where I kind of started like, you know, I was getting really busy with real life, and so I couldn't really be with the team, or you know, and then the whole Ghost thing, me not being involved, I just didn't have any, I wouldn't say interest, I just didn't have really a lot of time to really invest, you know, a lot of, you know, time with the guys and talk to them. So you know, Crondle would call me up and just, you know, Matt was back and forth. He was just so back and forth. You know, and you know, Crondle really didn't know what to do, and he got tired of it. You know, because going back to what I said earlier, this team was based around Wardell. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
Everything that Crondle did was because to make Wardell happy, and that's not really how you want to run a team by any means. And you know, I'm not told. And Crondle knows this. I've already told him. You know, and that's just not how you want to run a team. So I told him, just do what you think you should do. I personally wouldn't want to run my team around one person, one individual, just because he thinks that he is the best and he should be treated like the best. Although some of that might be true, you know, that you got to make the whole team happy to succeed, and that's kind of what had to happen. And you know, that's just where it's at right now.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, the end result of all that is Wardell is back with Ghost. Sanks has left the roster from his position as backup. Jason Neptune is turning 16 in literally 8 days, September 15th.
Oh, damn. Yeah. That's on happy birthday.
It still is kind of unknown how he will now fit into this formulation, if at all. It's kind of up in the air.
I mean, if I had to be honest with you, it's all unknown right now, Joe. Yeah, that's the transparency of it right now. That it's a lot like the Rogue situation. Who knows? You know, that's kind of where it's at right now. But you know, we don't know. Obviously, the plans are for Jason to be back. Obviously, being in the starting lineup. Who is he going to replace? I have no idea.
Right.
Not a single. I don't even think Crondle knows.
Right, and I mean, I've talked to Crondle, and the kind of the motto right now is day by day, match by match. We'll evaluate kind of what happens in that last week before he plays.
There needs to be a change.
It'll
there definitely needs to be a change. Right.
Well, they stole that one map off Liquid, which is better than Rogue is doing. So I guess that's something.
Hey, who was in that match though? Who was in that match? That's not playing right now.
Oh, B. Coach extraordinaire. All right.
If I had it my way, the team, basically what I'm alluding to, if I had it my way, the team obviously would have been what the team was prior to the whole Ghost introduction. And again, it just goes back to the money situation. You know, and again, Joe, if I'm like, hey, and I hope HLTV is paying you good money because what you do is extraordinary. But it kind of goes back to that, right? You know, if I'm like, hey, Joe, I'm a competitor of HLTV, I'm going to offer you 3 times the salary of what you're getting. It's a no-brainer, you know. Although in your heart you think that, you know, you've been with HLTV for a while, you think it's the best thing for your career and what you want to do. You're thinking money. That's just as simple as that. You know, we're all thinking that, especially at that young of an age, especially if we've never made that much money. So when you think that changes the whole dynamic. The whole foundation is completely changed, right? And so it kind of goes to that, you know, when you're introduced to this kind of money that Weed Maps or Ghost, if you will, is throwing at you, the whole dynamic changes. It's as simple as that. That's just what it comes down to.
No, I totally agree with that, and I definitely agree with your statement that there definitely is a thing as too much tinkering, right? Like, when going from Premier to Pro, I would cap the amount of changes at 2 max, because the step up is just so huge that you're already at such a disadvantage playing against these teams that have much more experience than you do at this higher level, that trying to figure out new team chemistry and new team composition is just way too much. It's you're stacking the deck against yourself. So I completely agree with you that that is a cardinal sin that was committed by the Ghost lineup. And as mentioned before, have not been helped by the numerous roster restrictions and restrictions necessary to hold down the various spots in the various leagues. Because I mean, again, it is amazing from where this team was a year ago to where they are now, holding spots in the two biggest leagues in the world. Granted, they don't hold an ECS spot proper, but they are in relegation right now. Oh, you went out again.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back.
He's on top of it. All right, but that's enough about Wardell and Ghost right now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the future. I mean, I guess kind of your future. What will you continue to be doing in the space? What will your involvement be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, CS has never been my career. It's never been my main thing, But I have such an interest in it. And I have such a love for these guys, When I started off, when Seb gave me that call and he was like, "Hey, listen, we need some money to go to this land," and I was so happy to do it because I've known Seb personally for about a year at that point. We talked on a personal level. I was just very happy to get involved and say, "Hey, listen, I'm down. Let me make this happen, right?" And so the whole reason I even got on is because of my relationship with Seb at the time, and B, that's the whole reason I even really entertained the idea. It wasn't like, oh, let me just go find a good team, let me fund them, or you know what I mean. It wasn't even like that at all. If I had to be honest, it was just more, again, it was a let me help a friend out, and he reached out to me, and I did. So I was hoping. Well, I didn't really have any hopes, but as the team got better and better, and I kept more of an eye on them, and I was able to be more involved in their decisions and what was happening. It got more serious towards the pro league, and again, I know, like, even when they signed with Ghost, I wasn't trying to get signed. I wasn't trying to be a part of the team because realistically, once they made pro league, they'd have to move out to LA to the gaming house, right? And there's no way I'm gonna move to a house full of, and I think Ghost had bought like a house for all their teams.
Mega mansion.
I've got a daughter, and unless they were willing to pay me $10,000 a month to move out there and house with all these kids, it just wasn't going to happen, right? So I didn't have any like long goal interests or anything like that, just like I don't now. It's more for fun for me, and I just, again, the main people I keep in contact with is B and Seb, and of course we did this little Premier experiment, obviously, so that was kind of fun at the time too. So to be honest with you, I don't have any plans for the future. Whatever comes my way comes my way, but I'm not actively looking to fund teams. I'm not actively looking to do anything, although I am still involved in the Counter-Strike community and I enjoy seeing what progresses, right? It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Premier team, which last season, for the majority of it, was known as Fly Guy Entertainment, with guys like Food and Shot Up and Zelsis for a point. I know you have a Zelsis thing. We can get there. I'll give you time for that. So will you not be involved with that team at all this season, or?
No, not unless they approach me.
Okay.
But again, the only involvement I had in that team really last season was just helping Cardinal put it together. Picking out the right people, and with just the random 5 that we got, we actually, I think they made playoffs, and they took a map off of Rise, which I think we're the only team that did that. So I thought it was a successful season for the amount of time that we put into it, right? And so that was kind of cool to be a part of. But again, no real investment on my end or anybody's end. But it was an entertaining season, to say the least.
And I mean, as of literally today, this morning, as I was doing my morning perusal of ESEA transactions, there was massive roster upheaval in that roster. It looks like their starting roster will no longer feature Shot Up, Food, two of like.
Oh, is he not on the roster? I haven't even looked at that. Wow. Okay,
yeah. Well, so they're still on the roster, but the main roster is listed as.
Shot Up goes where the money goes.
Well, and I
Shot Up goes where the
you
money
can
goes.
understand that, I know that was somewhat of a struggle for you guys to hold on to him last season as well, because he's another guy that has offers. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He had offers. He's always got offers. He's such an exquisite, awesome talent. He's got so much talent without even playing the game. He's just another one of those kids that just has a talent for the game, and he could play at the pro level, right? he couldn't even he could play at a pro level. He was offered a spot on the pro roster on Ghost and couldn't do it because of school, right? So,
Right.
Pro's kind of out of his it's out of his equation when it comes to. So really, it's whoever offers him the most money in Premier is who's going to get him, kind of deal.
Yeah, and I totally glossed over that. He was part of one of those Ghost permutations at a time, when they were playing ECS right before they got signed, and as you mentioned, he found his way off the team because he couldn't move into the team house, basically, because of school, not like due to any issues with him or his performance or anything like that. Well, maybe some of that, but not the main thing.
It's okay. That's another. Here's another juicy detail. I'll go ahead and say. Again, I don't think this is really a lot of the turmoil. Also came when Cody, the owner, or not the owner, the manager of Ghost Gaming, had actually reached out to Andy or shut up, and had offered, hey, try to get him out to the gaming house. And Crondell, obviously, he's supposed to be the manager at the time, goes over Crondell's head, and that created a lot of distrust within the team, right? And that's kind of where the team kind of went ape shit, where you see all these roster changes. They're not signing with Ghost anymore. They're signing with Ghost. It's a lot of flip-flopping, and that's the kind of the product of what happened. That Ghost right now is the product of what happened when you flip-flop so much. And right now, as you can see, the results aren't all that great. And so, I hope they figure it out pretty soon, though, and I think they will.
So, would you point to that kind of shot up breach of command hierarchy as something that ultimately led to that initial fracturing, or was that just one kind of incident of many?
That was one of many for sure. It's too much to count. I just get calls and I get asked questions, and what do you think what would I do in that situation is what they ask me. And it all stays within the team. I do believe that a lot of the situations should stay internal. So obviously, I'm not going to go out and give all this information about what happened, but I think that in that piece in particular was just one of many that kind of had this domino effect of okay, well, Cody doesn't trust Crondell, now Crondell doesn't trust Cody, and a lot of back and forth, and then you know what I mean. And so all this distrust and just became just so much, and so that's kind of where they're at right now, But again, it'll everything comes full circle, so I think they'll bounce back from it, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, that brings us to the end of the regular proceedings here. So I wanted to give you the floor, talk about whatever topics are near and dear to you, because I know you have some.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, you lead. I'll follow.
I'm trying to think, because I probably had some when I first talked to you, but I'm drawing blanks right now. But I think one thing that comes off the top of my head is that kind of what we had mentioned earlier. Now that all these Premier teams are getting offers, I don't know if that's maybe what you're referring to, but really now the Premier scene where it's at now is, again, 3 seasons ago, you didn't have all these organizations reaching out and saying, hey, listen, we're offering you this X amount of salary. Before it was just grind Premier and hopefully you make pro, right? But now it's you go to Premier, you're automatically getting, again, last season our guys got salary without contracts. You know what I mean? So the way it is becoming now is I just want to kind of let hopefully a group message to anybody that does hit Premier, be careful who you sign with and make sure it's the right thing for you. And make sure you don't get screwed over yourself, because it is a business at the end of the day. These organizations, they expect results, they have expectations, So again, I just want to kind of throw that out there, and so just to make sure that everybody understands that, be careful who you sign with.
And get a lawyer.
You could. I don't think it's necessary. It's really necessary, But in most cases, yeah. I mean, if the lawyer is cheap enough, why not? I think that's a great idea.
Well, at minimum, actually read your contract, because there's been plenty of stories of people that don't read their contracts, and they say, "What is this clause? I have to stream 100 hours a week on top of practicing and playing officials? What?"
Yeah. I've got to read a few of those contracts, but I didn't really get into the detail. But I've heard of that. I think when TSM signed Sean, he was supposed to be the ambassador for them, right? Just be that public figure. And so I think he touched on a couple of the contract situations in terms of just representing the sponsors the right way when you're streaming or whatever the case might be. So going back to that point, absolutely.
I know you have some general. I guess we talked about Premier kind of already, but I mean, what do you think could be improved about kind of the whole hierarchy in North America, right? Because this is something that is near and dear to me, is basically the entire North American scene. There's obviously stark contrast between North America and Europe. There's a much more vibrant lower tier scene in Europe than there is in North America, both in terms of online events and small LAN events. I mean, you look at the calendar this weekend in Europe, there's a LAN in Denmark with 24 teams, you know, rank in top 100, top 50-ish teams, you know, not anything crazy, not crazy money, but these teams are playing so many more events over in Europe than in North America, where basically ESEA is the only game in town. So
Philadelphia, but I guess if you compare the LANs, yeah, you're right.
Well, yeah, I mean, but even the LANs, you have Philadelphia, you have Mad City, are like probably the two longest running
There's
ones.
just a lot more LANs going on in Europe, is what you're saying, basically.
No, yeah. I'm saying there's more support for the bottom end of the scene, which ultimately winds up making the top of the scene stronger as well, because you have a bigger pool of players with more experience. But if you don't really have any thoughts on that, we don't have to go into that.
No, it's a great question. You know, great. And you said the contrast difference. You know, right now, and I think that everybody can see this. Rise Nation, look how well they're doing. Isn't it insane? They're the only team that I've seen in so long that have been able to develop a team chemistry and a team dynamic that allows them to surpass their competition consistently and do the things that they're doing. And to me, it's surprising, but also very impressive, right? And I heard the organization is great to them, and you know they treat them well. So, you know, props to them, and I hope they're the only team, in my opinion, in Premier next season I think they're gonna win it. I think they're gonna go pro next season, and I hope that they do. They're the only team, in my opinion, that have put in the proper dedication and work to do such a thing. And I know you interviewed them. Or interviewed a couple of their players a couple weeks back, and man, they're nothing but good. I don't know them personally, but nothing but good things to say about them. And I think that, you know, they're going to do good things, and I don't see any other team in Premier, to kind of go back to your question, that has really put in that kind of work that they put in. I think the saying goes, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, and I think they are doing perfect practice, right? I think they're doing the right things, and they have Oso Random, their coach, who is probably making them do that. And I know they recently got to the pro scrim group, if I'm not mistaken, and then now they have that higher competition to go against, and so they're just only going to get better. And I think teams should take note of that. You know, I think these teams coming into Premier should say, listen, look what Rise is doing. Let's follow suit, and you know, get the same results that they're getting. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Rise Nation are in the pro scrim group now on the back of their runners-up finish at Philadelphia, to the ownage mix of pro players.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Rise Nation.
You were there, weren't you?
I was. It was long days. To me, Rise Nation are clear favorites to take that to get certainly one of those pro spots.
It's so unfortunate that there was not a pro move up this season, right?
Yeah. So they're the clear favorites to get at least one of them. If they don't get one of those three spots, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, I think we all will.
But I mean, I would say French Canadians look quite well, depending on which piece they get as their fifth long term. They
have potential.
They did damage tonight. Just before we got on, they 2-0'd Splice in ECS, and they were playing Rise we started recording before the first map ended, but it was like 13-12 on the first map, so they can contend. I think the Denial Boys, if they got an organization that actually paid them, they could be pretty good. But
that's crazy.
That's a whole separate issue.
Have they even released a statement about that yet?
Oh, it's soon. Yeah. But
okay.
I mean,
it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
If they don't hurry up, I might have something for you. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I think we'll all be interested to see that for sure.
But other than that, man, that's all I got for you. So, any shout outs you want to do? The floor is yours.
Not really.
Let you go.
Again, I just want to commend you for the work that you do. My guy, they need to pay you more. What you do is insane. The amount of stuff you keep up with, the amount of stats that you keep up with I couldn't do it. Again, man, thank you for giving these players a platform to talk on. And I think that, that my only tip to you, my only tip to you is wear wife beater next time, all right? We need to get that jersey out of you.
Yeah, dude, we got to do the wife beater episode. I might try to do that. I don't know. We'll see. All right, man. Well, I will return that. Thanks to you for your efforts and your time, dedicating your time to come on. And that's it. Keep keep your eyes on this space, everyone, for what I got next for you. Always stuff in the works. It's just a matter of scheduling. This. How many times do we attempt to try to do this?
Man, we had to reschedule at least, and I don't exaggerate when I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say we had to reschedule at least 5 times.
Yeah, I was gonna go 3 to 4.
3 to 4, okay.
Yeah,
I would say just overshooting.
Yeah, I would say 3 to 4, and that happened over the space of probably about 3 weeks to a month. So, yeah, this has been a long time coming. We finally got it in the can.
Well, you're busy, I'm busy, so it makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Peace out.
Peace. Oh, see you guys.